I prepared the dish exactly according to the stupid instructions of the manager, and now he wants me to pay for the client's dry cleaning. In the early 2000s, I worked at a sandwich cafe. The store was open around the clock and was located in a very convenient place, an area with a large number of students and active nightlife, plus a major highway passed nearby which was used by everyone entering or leaving the city. When I got a job there, being a freshman who wanted to earn some money, this point was one of four in the chain. Gary, the owner and manager, bought the rights to it from the original owner. He also handled quality control because each point had its own suppliers back then. 2 years passed. The original owners decided to create a corporation. They received many franchise offers. Plus, there were some quality control issues. So they bought back all the establishments and introduced a centralized approach to working with suppliers. For Gary, this turned out to be profitable. He was the owner of the building, so he became a hired manager and additionally received income from rent. At first, nothing changed. We still held second place in the chain for sales. And then Dick came into play. Dick was the new regional manager. By that time, the chain had grown to a national level and was responsible for quality control. He was considered the golden boy. He had a business degree and he helped with the expansion. The problem was his ego. You see, Dick took a culinary masterclass. They gave him a certificate, but nothing more. And he considered himself almost a chef. The first thing he did was install a crepe machine. Just crepes for takeout, folded into a triangle. This is important for the rest of the story. Learning to prepare them was not easy at first, but pretty quickly the crepes became one of our hits. Even on bad days, we used more than 10 liters of batter. Encouraged by the first success, Dick decided to apply his culinary knowledge and introduce something else. At that time, Mexican cuisine was just starting to gain popularity in our country, largely thanks to cooking shows. Dick decided to ride the trend wave and added Mexican items to the menu. In practice, this meant two new standard sandwiches and crepes, those listed in the menu, as well as several customization options for sandwiches and crepes. And here the problems began. As I already said, Mexican cuisine was a novelty back then. Plus, our local cuisine is completely different, especially in terms of spiciness. Many products used in Mexican dishes were either rare or completely absent here. But Dick was sure that this was his next victory when he found a supplier. And from that moment, the quality went downhill. They started supplying us with buckets of ready-made chili and queso sauces jars, of pickled jalapenos, ready-made guacamole, and pico de gallo salsa. Also blocks of white cheese labeled queso blanca. The queso sauce was an orange paste with some red specks. According to my husband and poor lighting, it could be mistaken for spoiled sauce. It tasted like plastic. For me, it was associated with clay. After the first try, I was turned off Mexican food for a long time. And the jalapenos were not actually jalapenos. They were pickled Thai green chilies, just labeled as jalapenos. That is, in reality, they were much spicier than they should have been. I didn't try the rest, but a few desperate clients took the risk and were not thrilled. The only item that sold somewhat was nachos, simply because they were Doritos doused with warm queso. When heated, it turned into an orange liquid with a huge amount of bacon and sausage. We complained about the quality to Gary, but he could no longer do anything, and Dick didn't back down. Dick started getting annoyed that sales were low. He blamed us. You poorly pushed the new items and clients. These barbarians can't tell filet mignon from a steak, but he kept standing his ground. And then one day, Dick came with 4 people from the head office, 2 of whom were owners. They sat at a table, and Dick came up and placed an order for 5 quesadillas. We have self-service. I asked how he wanted me to prepare them. Exactly according to my instructions, he replied, "Okay, sir, I'll call you when they're ready." I answered with a smile. Now, about Dick's wise instructions for preparing quesadillas. First, they weren't quesadillas at all, but crepes. The instruction was as follows: heat the chili, start baking. A crepe, pour 1.5 ladles of heated queso. Add 1 ladle of chili, 1 tablespoon of chopped jalapenos, 1 spoon of queso blanca, half a spoon of guacamole, and fold it. All this turned into a liquid mush that tried to leak out from all sides of the thin crepe. Usually, we heated queso only for nachos, and for crepes, we put it cold and warmed it up from the hot plate to avoid that very mush. And here came my moment of malicious compliance. Me and another girl prepared 5 quesadillas exactly according to the instructions. I brought the order to the table, and all that was left was to watch the reaction. 5 men in white shirts and suits bite into the quesadillas, and they almost simultaneously explode, splattering them with melted cheese and red chili. Some bit into the jalapenos and were overwhelmed. A couple of strong expressions were heard. We brought them each a bottle of water and a pack of napkins so they could somehow clean their clothes. Let's just say the new menu didn't impress the head office. After they left, Dick returned. He was furious, came to the counter ignoring the line, and it was during peak hour and started a scandal. The further dialogue will be slightly censored. "You idiot, you made me look like a fool just because you don't like Mexican food." You can't even follow a simple instruction. The cost of dry cleaning will be deducted from your salary, and a bunch of even more insulting phrases. I stood in complete shock, as did the long line of clients who heard this outburst. And then Gary intervened. "Go to hell." "What did you say?" Dick roared. "I said, go to hell. The girls followed your instructions to the letter. Don't blame them for your mistakes, and don't make them pay for your dry cleaning. Yes, I can do whatever I want. When I deal with them, maybe I'll find a new manager for this point." "I'd really like to see that." "You'll see. I'll make it happen." And with those words, he flew out the door. Gary immediately called the head office and reported what happened. At the same time, he issued an ultimatum. If anything happens to the staff, let them find a new premises. 3 days later, we were told that Dick was fired. His outburst was the main reason, but it was also influenced by the fact that one of the owners had a very bad reaction to the jalapenos. A week later, the Mexican menu was removed. In the process, it turned out that Dick chose the cheapest supplier. As it turned out, they had a very shady reputation, which explained a lot. I worked there until the end of my studies, and then went to work in my specialty. About 2 years before I left, the Mexican menu returned. And this time, thoroughly. The head office hired a proper chef to consult and find decent suppliers. Now the ingredients are as authentic as possible. Pico de gallo and guacamole are prepared every day right on the spot. And they finally have normal queso. Although it took me a lot of time to dare to try it again. And no pre-packaged ready-made chili. No chili at all. My aversion to Mexican cuisine passed when my husband took me to a real Mexican restaurant, and I finally tried what real Mexican food is. Well, let's not waste time and move straight to the next story. A client didn't like my jokes and complained about me to the restaurant manager, but the wife put this smart guy in his place. I worked as a waiter for more than 5 years, so I accumulated a lot of stories, a bit of context. When I started working, I decided that the best way to connect with a client is through humor. As I saw it, most people came to eat well and have a good time. And my sense of humor is a bit strange, so I came up with all sorts of silly but harmless jokes. For example, if someone ordered a cappuccino, I brought juice from roasted beans with secretions of large cattle. When a visitor chose a terminal and entered the wrong PIN, I added, "My automatic and computational chip failed. Please restart the ES server," and so on in the same spirit. Since I did this for a long time, the intonations and delivery were light. People understood that it was a joke, and I had a whole arsenal of such preparations. Some didn't pay much attention, especially during payment. Others didn't care, but most often people laughed. That's why complaints about me were extremely rare. Some didn't like my sense of humor, and I understood that. In the worst case, visitors simply didn't leave a tip. No big deal except for one client. This man was sitting at a table in my service area with his wife and two children. One of the children looked a bit sad when I first approached them, and I decided it was a good chance to cheer him up. When I brought the drinks, I tried to be as joking as possible. "Me, here's juice from the white and brown cows. Sorry for the delay, we had a utter catastrophe when we milked them." Both children giggled. "Me, and here's water to brew your dry leaves and a bit of dismembered citrus." The mom looks a bit puzzled, but then it dawns on her and she smiles. "And finally, your dihydrogen monoxide in solid and liquid form." The father, however, sat with a sour face. "Father, sorry, what did you say? What are you serious? It's the essence of life. What came out of dinosaurs millions of years ago. Just very well filtered." The children giggled again, but their dad looked really annoyed. Fortunately, the mother didn't let him do anything, saying, "Honey, it's just water." After that, the lunch went relatively calmly. I took their order, brought the food when it was ready. I didn't tell jokes anymore. The menu was too big to come up with something for each item. But for the children, I tried. I approached twice to make sure everything was delicious, and even chatted a bit with the mom and kids. The father said almost nothing the whole time, only nodded when I asked if everything was okay, or silently handed the glass so I could pour water. He didn't bother me much, so I thought, well, okay, it seems to have worked out. I brought them the bill, said my standard joke: cash card or firstborn. We accept at the cash register when you're ready. And even the mom joked back, "Well, then the dishes are washed by child number one." When I passed their table next time, the father was already paying at the cash register, and the children were drawing on the children's menus, and the mom was watching them. She thanked me for the good mood and gave a tip $7 for cheering up her children. It turned out that their dog had a vet appointment, and the children were very worried. I replied that I was happy to at least distract them from bad thoughts and said I'd be glad to see them again. It seemed like it should have ended there, but no. While the mom was thanking me, the dad was complaining to the shift manager, saying something like, "I'm retelling from the manager's words. This waiter is simply unbearable. He makes up some nonsense and doesn't shut up. I just want to eat in peace, not deal with some clown annoying my family." He even joked that I could pay with my children. The point of the complaint was that he wanted a waiter without jokes, without chatter, to bring the food and leave. And now, attention. He not only complained, but also demanded a discount and a free dessert for the children as compensation for all the inconvenience. Well, in the restaurant industry, the client is king. The manager caved like a wet rag and personally brought them the dessert. Since I've been working there for a long time and we have a good relationship with the manager later when they left, we just laughed about what a jerk this guy was. And now, malicious compliance, about a month passed. Wednesday, I'm on the day shift. Dead time. The first couple of hours of the shift, I'm alone in the hall, and the manager is in the back room counting the previous shift's revenue. Basically, I was alone unless you count the cook, who can't go out to the hall. And then that same man comes in with his family. I couldn't immediately greet them as I was carrying food to other visitors. Nevertheless, the mom and kids were happy to see me again, but the dad looked at me as if I brought him poop on a napkin. It was clear that he recognized me, but more importantly, I recognized him too and remembered his complaint perfectly. His mistake was that he went to the bathroom while I was seating his family. It was the very beginning of the shift. I was in a great mood. I asked how they were doing. Child number 1 said that the dog was much better. Child number 2 asked if he could get some juice from the brown cow's udder. The mom ordered mint tea for herself and coffee for her husband. While seating them, I said that today I'd do something differently. I told the kids that I wasn't mad at them at all. Honestly, the mom was a bit surprised, but I just winked and went to get the drinks. When I returned with the tray, the dad was already sitting there. Perfect. I slowed my usual pace and approached them with a slow, almost solemn step. The children raised their heads. They were clearly expecting jokes. Father, we're not ready to order yet. I completely, emotionlessly, as you say, sir. Your coffee, mint tea, chocolate milk, orange juice, 3 waters 1, without ice cream, for the coffee sugar in the container to the right of your wife. Do you need any further service from me? Father, no. The children and mom were completely baffled. Just a couple of minutes ago, I was a cheerful joker, and now I turned into a monotone robot. But I just turned 90 degrees and went to the next table, where I immediately became myself again. This went on for a while. The dad couldn't decide on the order, although the children had long known what they wanted. Every time I approached them, I maintained complete neutrality and then returned to other clients. Joked, chatted with a regular client about video games with an elderly couple about their children, and with them, nothing. Emptiness. The mom asked to take the appetizer order. I nodded and approached. Funny, but they chose the same appetizers as the elderly couple. So the couple heard from me 6 cheese balls and a warm stomach home. And for them, I dryly said cheese balls 6 pieces. Of course, by the time I brought them the appetizers, their mood was at 0. The children wanted to hear jokes from me, not overhear them. Even the dad looked annoyed because I was much warmer and friendlier with others. And then the mom asked me exactly the question I was waiting for. Waiter, why do you joke with everyone but us? Last time we had the best service of all. Father called the manager immediately. I don't like being ignored. I, of course, didn't even think about going for the manager, but simply took the most neutral expression and answered in a calm, even tone. Sorry, sir, but last time when paying you, demanded from my manager that I not joke, be brief and unobtrusive. As I recall, you said that my jokes annoy you and your family. At that moment, the mother and children stared right at the guy. He instantly turned red. I didn't say that. I said that the service was excellent. Actually, sir, let me remind you. You insisted that I not make up nonsense, complained that I couldn't shut up and found my humor offensive, especially the part where I allegedly suggested you pay with your children. And my manager then gave you a 25% discount and a free dessert as compensation. Wife, what? And he told us that you offered a free dessert because you felt sorry for our dog. Although I would have liked to do that, it's not true. So my behavior today corresponds to his previous complaint. At this moment, the children looked upset, and their mother was simply furious. She asked for some time to discuss the order. I nodded and walked away. A little later, I saw the parents leave the restaurant, and soon the mother returned alone. As it turned out, her husband is a serial complainer who constantly tries to get discounts and free food by complaining about the service. The mother was extremely outraged that he pulled this trick again, and even with their favorite waiter. In the end, he went to eat alone at a nearby establishment, and I became cheerful again and started entertaining the children. I apologized for my behavior, and the lunch continued in the usual warm atmosphere. Later, I received another complaint from this guy through a feedback form. The manager said that I was not entirely right, but I think it was worth it, especially since the mother and children came back several times and asked if I was working today. Personally, I think he's just mad because he didn't know that H2O is water. Edited, yes. I understand that my humor can be annoying, and I myself am not one of those who want a waiter to chat when I eat. Humor is a subjective thing. Some find it funny, some don't. Many didn't pay attention, some laughed, but in 5 years complaints were extremely rare. Usually I started with water or coffee. If the table didn't respond, I switched to normal mode. When I work, I joke more with those who react well to it, and when there's time. We have a diner near the university, so the audience is mostly students, families, and the elderly, not some business types. So the jokes grew right out of communicating with such people. Well, during peak hours, of course, there's no time for that. The main thing there is speed. And with that table, I overplayed a bit because the children and mom liked it. Well, thank you for listening to these two stories to the end. I'm waiting for your opinion in the comments. Also, watch our previous video, which you'll see right here. And good luck to you.